All right, welcome back to another episode of Historic Headstones in Norfolk. We are in Hampton National Cemetery in Hampton, Virginia. Happy 4th of July. We figured this would be a great place to do videos this weekend because of the holiday. This is a little different. We are not going to be talking about Americans on this video. We are going to be talking about Germans and Italians. There is an area in this cemetery for prisoners of war and for people who died fighting Americans in World War II. They are soldiers, and the Americans did give them full military burial. All right, sometime just before dusk on April 15, 1942, a detachment of U.S. sailors and soldiers began passing through the gates of Hampton National Cemetery on a somber mission. Flanked by stern-faced MPs, military police from Fort Monroe, and honor guard of Army enlisted men carried in 29 plywood coffins, depositing them one by one alongside newly dug graves. More than a dozen officers looked on as chaplains conducted the burial rites. But as the firing party of 24 seamen sent 3 volleys in the air and a Navy bugler began the taps, it was unclear if the spectators lined up 3 deep on the far side of the brick walls, which is right there, really close. They're buried right here, so you can see how close the spectators were, understood the importance of what they were seeing. Less than 2 days earlier, all 29 of the dead had been fighting for their lives in a fierce sea battle off Cape Hatteras in North Carolina, which is OBX. In a matter of minutes, their unlucky vessel became the first German submarine destroyed in the U.S. waters during World War II, marking the beginning of the end for the brutal U-boat offensive that sent so many ships to the bottom. The Germans called it the Great American Turkey Shoot. Among the ships to be dispatched from Norfolk on March 31st to help fight the U-boats was the World War I era Roper, a 4-stacker destroyer rated at 35 knots, and also its sister ship USS Dallas, which was a Newport News-built destroyer of the same vintage. Dispatched from France on March 21st, the U-85 arrived off the East Coast on April 5th and sank the only ship on its final cruise. On April 10th, notes of secret Navy report that includes a translation of the crew member's diary. Just past midnight that night, the U-boat was cruising on the surface within sight of Bodie Island Lighthouse when the Roper made radar contact at 2,700 yards. Notes that May 1924 report, which is now in the National Archives. Moving in to investigate, Lieutenant Commander Hamilton Howe, H-O-W-E, Howe, and his crew spotted a wake and a silhouette at 2,100 yards that appeared to be running away from them. But the speedy destroyer closed in on its unidentified quarry, which responded with a torpedo that passed off Roper's port side at 700 yards. The first shot was fired, and it was from the Germans. The U-85 was much faster on the surface and was trying to get away by shaking the Roper off. Caught in the glare of the 24-inch searchlight, the U-boat was an easy target for Roper's machine guns when its 3-inch guns joined in. The outcome was certain. Struck by a direct hit that penetrated its pressure hull at the waterline, U-85 began to sink at stern, leaving about 40 members of its crew stranded on the disappearing deck or in the water. The Roper lowered a life raft to pick up the survivors, which was traditional back then, but the destroyer picked up a strong sonar signal that appeared to be another submarine. That's when it dropped 11 depth charges before hauling off in a defensive position, waiting till dawn to resume its rescue. When it returned, the Roper found no survivors, just 29 bodies that it recovered and transported back to Norfolk. Even before the last body was recovered, the Navy was searching through the crew's effect for any possible scrap of information they could use against the Germans. So keen was the drive to glean intelligence from the milestone kill that not long after the Roper returned to Norfolk, Navy hard hat divers entered the wreck in a fruitless attempt to retrieve its priceless treasure, the Enigma code machine, which they did not find. 2 weeks later, the submarine rescue and salvage ship, the USS Falcon, tried to raise the vessel to get that machine. The breach in the pressure hull was just too much. Every time they tried to pump it full of air or bring it to the surface, the air would just rush out through the hole. Still, the Navy cloaked the fate of the U-85 a mystery for most of the war, including the nighttime burial of its crew, a months-long press blackout, and leaving the graves unmarked until autumn. Not until July 22nd, 1942 did it finally issue a short statement describing the burial rites, but it still withholds the vessel's identity, the name of its assailant, and the date of its sinking. 75 years later, the wreck is a favorite target for sports divers, including those who recovered the Enigma machine in 2001. This is the only place in the continental United States where you can come face to face with World War II in the U.S. waters. All right, so we are standing in the Phoebus section of the National Cemetery here. We have the Germans' stone start at that row right there, 3 rows over, and they go over to this row right here. And they go to the wall, mostly, but the Germans are not the only ones buried here. We have Italian prisoner of war buried here as well. These are all Germans here, but we have an Italian stone right here. I cannot pronounce the names for the life of me, but that is Italian prisoner of war. Only 13 national cemeteries have prisoner of wars buried in them, and Hampton National Cemetery is one of them. They are soldiers. They were given military burials just like soldiers should. Even though if they are the enemy, the U.S. still shows them respect. So we have Germans here. We have another Italian here, another Italian here, and another Italian. So I think there's roughly 10 Italians buried in here. And then we got 29 Germans buried in here as well. So I call this a prisoner of war section, or enemy combatant section. But this is, if you ever have any free time, come out and take a walk along these stones. It's something I've never seen before, and it's really cool to look at. All right, guys, take care and have a great 4th of July.